Let me start recording. All right. Thank you all for joining us today for our healthcare industry sector meeting to discuss the proposed B&O tax in Auburn. We will be recording today's meeting for others that weren't able to make it. We at the Chamber have set up the sector meetings to ensure that the business community has an opportunity to provide insight, feedback to the City Council on the impacts of the B&O tax on their individual sectors before it goes in front of the Council for vote in the first quarter of 2021. The B&O tax is proposed to be implemented starting in 2022. What we know from our meetings with the city is that they will be proposing a B&O tax to help with the city's projected general fund deficit. The general fund is the fund that pays for parks and recreation, human services, our police department, city administration, and city improvements. The city believes with the increase in population, they will need additional dollars to sustain the services they are currently providing to our community. Currently, we haven't seen a draft on how the B&O tax will impact certain business sectors or how it will be executed. However, we didn't want any sector not to have a voice and an opportunity to provide comment before a draft is created, ensuring our business voices are heard ahead of time. We at the Chamber appreciate the council members being here and hearing our feedback from our business that are crucial to the Auburn economy and community. I want to thank today's council members, Deputy Mayor Claude DeCourcy and Councilmember Robin Mejia for making it today. We appreciate your time and also your listening ears. Also, I want to thank our city's financial director, Jamie Thomas, for coming and answering any of the tough questions we might have about the financial aspects and how a B&O tax might be implemented. Today, I want to thank Christian Faltenberger from the Outlet Collection Seattle, who is also going to be our healthcare sector board liaison and will be providing feedback to our board on today's meeting, as well as being a resource to you if you have additional questions or concerns after this meeting and you want our board and the city to be aware of it. I'll ask all of you to please place yourself on mute at this time unless you are speaking so that we can make sure that we're hearing everybody that is talking when they are providing feedback. If you want to provide any kind of feedback, comments, questions, concerns, please go ahead and do so when there is a lull or a moment to, or you can feel free to raise your hand in the raise your hand options, or go ahead and place something into chat and we'll make sure that everybody gets an opportunity to speak today. So I'm going to go ahead and start this off. Is there anybody that has any questions, concerns, feedback from the healthcare sector? Somebody definitely has music. I am going to ask if, I don't know who's from iPad 19. That might be where we're getting the music from. If you go ahead and put yourself on mute, unless you have something that you want to say, definitely unmute yourself and feel free. All right. Well, if we don't have any questions from our healthcare, I will go ahead and just kind of throw it a little bit to Jamie. Jamie, I know that our healthcare sector is a little bit different, right? So we have some nonprofits in the healthcare sector, and then we also have for-profit, but how are you guys looking at the healthcare sector in the sense of how this would be a B&O tax on them? Is it off of their gross? Is it off of maybe potentially their square footage? What are you guys looking at currently for implementing a B&O tax on the healthcare sector that would include dental, physical therapists, chiropractors, hospitals?
So typically healthcare is going to fall under the professional services category. So the rate that they would be paying would fall under the professional services category. That said, I know that we had met with Ingrid with Multicare. Actually, the mayor and I did probably about a month ago now, and they had, I think it was, I can't remember if he was the the vice president of finance, I believe is what his role was. And he kind of gave us a pretty good synopsis of, at least when it comes to the hospital, some of the challenges that they faced. A lot of it being that elective surgeries and procedures had been postponed, and really, so their profitable services had been postponed and have really seen a huge decrease in those revenues. And they had asked really to consider a lot of the deductions, or at least considerations for a lot of their costs, like unpaid medical costs, or their low income medical services that they provide. And kind of going through in response to the comments that we had received from them, I'd gone through the code, particularly the model ordinance, more closely. And there really are a lot of provisions in there for at least the hospital. I can't necessarily say for all healthcare professionals, dentists, and general practitioners that have their own offices and practices, but there are deductions for unpaid credits and losses, and as well as any services or any money that a hospital or a healthcare institution would receive from either the state, the federal government, cities, or any other municipality. Those would all be considered exempt revenue. So that actually was a question from our nonprofit sector. There was there was a nonprofit organization that really most of everything they did was a service that they provided for the state of Washington. And in going through the code a little bit more closely, that all of that revenue that they received from the state would actually be exempt. So I think that there are a lot of pieces in the model ordinance that would exempt a lot of portions of revenue. So you would start with your gross revenue overall, let's say, just throwing out a number, $5 million as your base. That makes you eligible for reporting B&O tax, but that there's probably a lot of deductions and exemptions that would come off that base revenue amount for actually calculating the tax and reporting and paying. So that is kind of where we're thinking with the healthcare. I'm not sure if there was anything, I don't know if there's anybody that had more specific questions specific to a type of practice or not. So I'll stop there.
It looks like we have somebody on from Health Point. I don't know exactly. Do you have any questions that might be concerning of how a B&O tax would affect or impact your guys' business?
Well, I was thinking about what Jamie had said, because she had said, state, federal, city funding. Most of our funding does come from donations and grants, but our other very large funding comes from Medicare, Medicaid. So would that fall under the same category as us receiving funds from state, federal, as our payer through the Medicaid and Medicare programs?
Yes, it is. It's kind of broad on how the I'm trying to remember if it's an exemption or it's a deduction, how it's written. I think really any health or social service that you pay and are paid for by really the government, the US government, or any of its subsidies are exempt from the reportable income.
Okay.
And I'm saying this not giving financial accounting advice right now, but just as how the code is written right now, just in broad generalities.
Got it. I think that was, most of our concern, because we felt like if we went into with a B&O tax on, those funds, because if anybody is providing Medicare, Medicaid services and accepting funds as a payment, it doesn't even cover costs. Right. So, it counts as revenue, but it doesn't cover costs.
And that's exactly what we had heard from MultiCare as well, which is that, you're providing a base service, but then there is that difference between what you're actually getting reimbursed through Medicaid, and it doesn't make you whole in the end. Right. Even.
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we have any other medical people on.
Oh.
I think somebody else just dropped off, and I think the other person is Christian.
Yeah, I'm here from the chamber. Multicare was not able to attend. I know that Ingrid was hopefully having the financial director be on for this call.
Yeah, Mark, he got the information for it, but at the same time, like Jamie had said, they had a meeting with Jamie and the mayor about this, so that they could get as many questions answered ahead of time as well. There was quite a few people actually RSVP'd for this, but it looks like, as we've all known, our days kind of get away with us. I think that's,
Yeah, things happen.
yeah. I do think though that I will say that I was on a meeting today with the city's BIA, and it was the downtown association members mainly that are part of that BIA board. And one of the things that came up was about the B&O tax. And I think what was beneficial is that I got to say, we have these recorded and people can go back and look at them and hear those things. And then if they need to ask any more questions, they are absolute, they can fill them through me, and then I will provide those obviously to the city. I think that's helpful because people are so busy right now during the holidays, but they also do sometimes have unanswered questions if they didn't get their questions answered during some of these other sector calls that they've been able to watch these videos. So hopefully a lot of the sector videos previous to this have answered some of those questions, and they were thankful for it. So I think that's great.
So a question with that BIA group, was there any feedback that you heard as far as having those BIA fees still in effect going towards the same programs compared and any comments about the potential credit that we would write in for those BIA fees? Did they have any additional questions or feedback on that?
I actually explained it to them on that in the meeting, because it did come up, that question, and then Cheryl turned it over to me and said, could you explain probably better what Jamie had said? And I explained to them exactly how that credit works so that they had an understanding that it's basically a deduction off the top of the B&O. And then at that point that B&O or that basically that fee for people being in the downtown area is still going to go to the BIA so that it can help improve that area, right? The BIA. So it's not going towards the general fund, it's going towards the BIA. So they're very well aware of it, and I think they completely understand that now. Oh, looks like I have one. Oh, Mark from Multicare is actually joining us right now, I think. Hello.
And I see that there was a question about BIA fees. So I'll just give a quick explanation on what those are. A high level explanation. There's an area in our downtown core that's been identified as the business improvement area. And those businesses in that area pay a certain amount of fees each year towards that separate entity, and the BIA board then decides how they're going to reinvest the money that they've collected from those businesses into downtown, whether it's flowers, beautification, signage, things that go kind of essentially investments back into drawing customers and people into the downtown core.
Hi, Mark. It looks like you've joined. We actually don't have very many people on this call today. By any chance, do you have any questions about the B&O tax or feedback or concerns that you would like to share?
Not hearing.
Actually, I don't think its audio is connected, it looks like.
Oh. Can I follow up with What is the rate that's being proposed? Do we know that yet?
Staff hasn't brought the council the draft ordinance yet for consideration. So we're working on the draft and we'll bring that to council study session for discussion and really just comparison of different scenarios as far as rates and thresholds. But the common threshold, at least reporting threshold that we've been looking at just as a base, would be really a minimum of $500,000, maybe even as high as $750,000. And then the rate, being that we are capped at 0.2% by state law, we aren't even looking at needing a rate that high. So we've got about a $4 to $6 million gap that we're trying to fill in the general fund exclusively through B&O Tax. And we've got we plan to raise additional revenue sources, other areas, but we're relying on B&O Tax, or looking to rely on B&O Tax for $4 to $6 million. So kind of backing into that $4 to $6 million figure puts us at a rate of anywhere between 0.05% or 0.05% to 0.1%. And really depending on industry, some of our proposals are going to council are going to center around potentially having a higher rate for higher margin industries and a lower rate for those slimmer margin industries like retail and food service. But we will prepare several different scenarios, kind of playing with the threshold and the rates for council to consider when we're talking about the code. But that's the ballpark that we're playing in.
Okay.
Does anyone else have any questions, concerns, or feedback for Jamie or the council? Well, I don't know if Jamie, if you have anything else you want to share, or our council members, if you guys have anything you want to share, please feel free to. Otherwise, I'm going to give you guys back a lot of extra time tonight.
Oh, I'll just chime in here a little bit, Casey. So as has been said, this will come before council first quarter of next year. And as Jamie just mentioned, this will be brought back to our study sessions for further discussion, review, and for council for all their consideration on how we go forward with this. We began these discussions over 2 years ago related to the pending deficits that the city would be facing well prior to COVID-19. So our expenditures, as Jamie mentioned, increase 2 to 3% or more a year, and our revenues increase about 1% a year. So we have that gap that Jamie mentioned that we need to fill, and this is one of the considerations on how to do that. So your city council will be taking this under consideration. We have already had some discussions related to this. We had budget retreats that we had back in March, just as COVID was about to hit us. So we had 2 days of budget retreat meeting. We've had other discussions in our biennial budget meetings, and we haven't ended the conversation. We've begun the conversation on this. So we have quite a ways to go before we get to the point of looking at the legislation coming before us, and then taking a vote on the legislation.
Thank you for that information, Claude, and thank you to the city for just participating in these calls. Thank you to our council for participating in these calls. Unless there's any other questions, I'm gonna go ahead and give you guys back some of your night.
Sounds fantastic.
Thank you again,
I
Casey,
know.
for helping to organize this.
Yeah, no worries.
Thank you, council members, for taking the time.
All right, well, have a great night, you guys.
Yeah, thank
And
you
I
for having
only have
us
to
on
go
the
sit
call.
through this one more time on next Tuesday.
Yeah, thank you
Bye.
guys for having us.
Thank you, Robin.
Bye.
All right, have a good night.
Have a good night. Bye.
Bye-bye.